We are going to work on migrating this game using the Performant Localization system. You'll find a link to the asset in the description of this video. Let's begin. First, we need to identify the text that can be translated. Alright, we entered the game. Here we can already see two buttons. The buttons can be translated with a script that automates that process.
Finally, you wake up from your nap. Most of the spacecraft's components are in poor condition. It's possible that you won't be able to use things more than once. Now, turn on this piece of junk.
The character doesn't need to be translated. It's just a letter. Unless we make a game in Japanese. By the way, if you like the assets from this game, I'll also leave a link in the description. I have a published asset of this game that include the models, textures, sounds, and more. There are external libraries that obviously are not included, like the one for space.
Black holes evaporate.
These notes can also be translated, just like the buttons. Alright. This text is dynamic, we can translate it too. We should also translate this text. Let's see if there was more text. These buttons also need to be translated. Alright.
Beyond the event horizon of a black hole, the known laws of space and time fracture.
That text could also be translated.
Reality dissolves into the realm of impossibility. The fabric of space-time is twisted and distorted, causing a profound distortion of time and a profound blur of perception. It becomes a place where space and time merge, creating an intricate tapestry of infinite possibility.
Singularity is the name of the game. I'm not going to translate it, I prefer to keep it the same. That's it. Let's begin with the translations then. First, we're going to set up the translation system. We're going to place it at the end to have it clearly located. The first step then is to go to Plugins/Performance folder. Let's see if this can be seen better. Go to Performance/Localization system. Prefabs, and we drag and drop this into our game. That's the first step. Let's check the options. We want to optimize CPU. The idea is to put it in a folder called Localization Side Resources. So I leave this as default. I'm interested in it automatically loading the language from the operating system. In this case, we're on an operating system that's in English, so it will start in English. I'll also leave these options as default. This here. Loading definition is for choosing which files to load. In this case, I'll leave these definitions that load all the translation files. So, since I have the localization system set up, let's create the files. For that, we need to go to the Resources folder. I'll end a game to keep things more organized and create a folder here called Resources. and inside it, we're going to create our CSV file. So we come here to create, localization, and new CSV file. Here's the file. Remember we said that it had to be inside a folder called localization, and I'm going to name this file main. Let's open the file. For this, I use a program LibreOffice, which is free open source software. Take a screenshot of the options. The idea is that within the CSV format, things are separated by semicolon. So, you check this option and you can see how it's separated into columns and rows. You need to leave this here because if you look, everything is delimited by quotes. See? Double quotes. We click OK, and here we already have our translation file. We're going to start, as we said, by translating the interface. Here we have two buttons that have a text type field inside but do not use Text Mesh Pro. If you use Text Mesh Pro, you should come here and click Enable. OK, we'll translate the Wake Up button by editing its prefab. We're going to add to the prefab a script for automatic translation. In this case, text translator script. We'll leave the key empty, and by leaving it empty, it will be inferred. So automatically, when the buttons appear, it will try to translate them. We go again to Localization System, Editor Mode, and check this option that says Export Missing Translations. This option will help us automatically generate a list of missing translations. However, this feature is not magic. These missing translations will only appear when an attempt is made to translate them. Let's play a bit again. Notice that it already detects that these words are missing. So it generates a file for us here, Missing Translations. I need a cassette to show me options. Well, now I have more options. Let's see if I click on one, for example, this one. And on the steering wheel, we had more options. There it is. Do you see how it appears at the bottom? Now let's go to our Missing Translations file. See? We already have a bunch of words. So all we have to do is open it. We copy these terms and paste them into our file. Then we start translating. Wake Up is disperters. This would be something like the tenor alarma. This one we'll skip for now as it seems to be dynamically generated by code. So we'll translate this one through code. For this one, no need to translate it via code. I was unsure how to write the word cassette in Spanish, so it's acceptable to write it like this, simply cassette. Now we have everything translated except for this one here. For now, we'll save it. Let's go back to the game. I'm going to force it to Spanish for testing purposes. To do that, I'll add a new script to the game. In this case, since I only want to force it during testing, I'll make it execute only if it's in the Unity editor. I'll skip the first step because I want the translation system to load automatically. But afterward, I'll replace the translation with the Spanish language. So, let's go to Localization Core Script and load the Spanish language. Notice that here we can put ease or easeAR. I forgot something important. I created a script but never added it, so let's add it now. Now we have the texts. Obviously, since in this language the texts are longer, we would need to make some adjustments to the buttons. For now, let's try something quick so as not to delay the video. Let's do something more interesting. We'll use best fit. We could add some padding. Let's make that small change so that everything looks more or less okay. I'm going to mute the game sound. Alright, now all the buttons are translated. Notice how simple it was. Let's proceed to translate the other interfaces. Let's translate this text. Explosion in. Well, we could also translate this text automatically using the same script. The text translator script. Then this text here. This text is definitely dynamic. I need to find where it's edited. And I'll search for it directly in the code. Alright, here it is. This needs to be refactored for translations. Let's copy this, just to have the text. What we're going to do is build a template string. Like this. So we're going to create some variables here with these texts. And here in onEnable we're going to call a method that loads these templates and translates them. To translate this text, we simply call the function localize. This will automatically translate it using the CSV. If it doesn't find it, it will add it to the missing translations list. Alright, let's create a variable alarm text color. Then here we can make a method named bool_to_on_off. That converts a boolean to on or off value. And with this, we can replace that append line with an append format that doesn't generate garbage. And there we have it, pretty clean. For optimization, these values can be stored in fields like onText and offText, but well, to not make the video too long, I won't optimize absolutely everything. Also, the string builder should be instantiated once in the script. Then we should store it in a field and clear it before using it. Alright, let's tidy up the rest of the texts. It seems to be a bit more complex. Let's see the best way to migrate it. I would say since they have different colors, and they are like two very distinct cases, we can create a variable for a showing floor and another variable for the opposite case. Well, now looking at it closer, I realize that this is a fixed string, so it's not necessary to parameterize it. An engine, on the other hand, should use a string template. Something I missed here, I did an append format, but I never did the append line for the line break. I will refactor it here to make it easier to read. Alright, let's say I've corrected these cases. Now determine the color for the engine text. Then, we'll append the text using the string template. Now we finally repeat the process for the battery. Here, if the engine is working, it shows us on/off. If the engine is not working, it shows a hard-coded X with a red color. It will look something like this. If the engine is working, it puts a green color or a warning color. The text should be OK enough instead of on/off, so let's make another private method named bool to OK_off. Alright, let's test the game. Now the missing translation should appear again. We copy the missing translations and paste them into our game. And we're going to translate the terms. Here I think I'll also have problems with the text length. Let's use specify. Here I made a mistake. I left old code. The text looks quite bad. That looks better. Alright, let's tidy this up to improve its quality. Let's leave it there. We added more quality, we fixed that problem. In Spanish, it won't look bad to use a shorter text instead of encendido or pegado and funcionando. For example, instead of funcionando I can use listo, and instead of encendido I can put S. Alright, let's check the computer now. It's perfect. I come and deactivate the alarms, and let's quickly fix the engine. Oh, I need to translate that text too. There it is. Here the buttons are also fine. This one will finish translating when the game restarts. We're almost done. We still need to translate this mission. Let's look for mission. We also need to translate the text back. Something very important, when you paste a text, you have to do it directly in the formula bar, otherwise it will be pasted in a rich format, and now we don't want that in the CSV. If, for example, we wanted to use a custom key instead of using this as a key, we can write it here, for example, special game description. Then we come to our translation file and use that as the key. In that case, we would need to put the translation in English and then in Spanish. Here we're missing the line break. We said we're not going to translate Singularity because it's the name of the game. Here we're going to automatically translate this. Now we translate the notes. I thought these were generated by code. Since they're not, we can do the same step we did previously. We have a button. We have to enable all the options to generate the missing translation error. Just copy and paste them directly. In this case, since I have all the text here, we will copy and paste each one and translate it, making the game completely translated. We are missing some details, but to avoid dragging it out, let's leave it here. Let's do one last test. Let's try to collect all the items so we can see. Alright. Everything is already translated here. As you can see again in the missing translations, more terms have been added. The previous back wasn't working because we translated it as back with an uppercase letter, and this one is lowercase. Here, for example, the question could arise: why not perform a detection ignoring case? It's simply because the idea of the performant localization system is to be efficient. And comparing strings while ignoring case generates garbage, which becomes a performance penalty. Well, we'll leave the video here and see you in the next one.